I want to welcome everyone here to this Helsinki Commission hearing titled Prisoners of the Purge, the Victims of Turkey's Failing Rule of Law. I'm honored to be chairing this hearing on behalf of Senator and Chairman Wicker. As of today, an American pastor has spent 404 days in a Turkish jail without a trial, without access to evidence against him, the subject of a vicious smear campaign from the Turkish press, and facing life in prison on fabricated charges of being a terrorist and a coup plotter. Elsewhere in Turkey, a Turkish-American NASA scientist has spent 480 days in prison, much of it in solitary confinement, on terrorism and espionage charges, springing from a baseless testimony of a disgruntled relative and a bizarre compilation of circumstantial evidence, including a dollar bill seized from his parents' home. Today also marks 253 days behind bars for a veteran Turkish employee of the U.S. consulate in Adana who stands accused of terrorism for doing his job as he has for 30 years, communicating on behalf of the United States government with local community contacts. These prisoners, Andrew Brunson, Serkan Golge, and Hamza Uluçay, are the innocent victims of Turkey's collapsing rule of law. With every passing day, the injustice of these detentions compounds itself. For the Brunson family next week, another Thanksgiving apart. For Kubra and her two young kids, another day away from their home in Houston. For Hamza, another inexplicable punishment for his dedication to the job he loves. But the focus of this hearing is not personal. It's principle. Just as Andrew, Serkan, and Hamza have been victims of Turkey's failing rule of law, there are literally thousands more like them behind bars today. Since imposing a state of emergency nearly 16 months ago, the Turkish government has detained more than 60,000 people and fired or suspended upwards of 100,000 others from their jobs. The so-called decree laws authorizing these punitive measures do not establish any evidentiary standard for application, thereby permitting wide-scale abuse as seen in the cases I've highlighted. Of course, context matters, and the Turkish government invoked its constitutional state of emergency provisions in the wake of the July 2016 coup attempt, an unacceptable and violent attack on the constitutional order of a NATO ally, an attack I unequivocally condemn. But the question is not whether Turkey has the right to pursue justice after such a national trauma. The question is how it goes about it. The Helsinki Commission has called this hearing today to get to the bottom of the accumulating injustices under this state of emergency. As a participating state of the Organization for Security and Cooperation in Europe, Turkey has committed itself to upholding certain rule of law standards, even under extraordinary circumstances. Among these commitments is the guarantee of equality before the law. However, Turkey's commitment to this principle has been called into serious question. Just 2 months ago, President Erdogan proposed an outrageous swap. Andrew Brunson, a pastor, for a pastor, in his words. If the United States would circumvent its rule of law to extradite a free man, Erdogan suggested, then Turkey would release a wrongfully imprisoned one. Let us be clear about what President Erdogan proposed. This is not justice, it's ransom. The United States should not expect, much less accept, this sort of treatment from a NATO ally. The harassment and detention of our consulate staffs has also overstepped the bounds of diplomatic conduct among partners. I was glad to see the State Department in the past month impose some real cost for this behavior by suspending non-immigrant visa services to Turkey. While the department announced last week that it had resumed these services on a limited basis and received assurances about the security of our local employees, I hope that we are clear with Turkey that we will not accept anything short of true and timely justice for our detained consulate staff and our citizens behind bars. I hope that I will not tire, I also hope that we will not tire in advocating for the basic rights and freedoms of thousands of Turks impacted by these sweeping purges. Academics, mayors, legislators, journalists, and human rights defenders among them. Let me conclude by saying that it is in the interest of the United States to have Turkey as a strong and reliable ally. From strengthening NATO to fighting terrorism to resolving conflicts in the Middle East, we have important work to do together, and we will be more successful if we can work as partners. The urgency of these tasks underscores the importance of resolving distractions and rebuilding the trust we need to achieve common objectives. And as always, our partners are strongest when they are rooted in shared principles. We have two excellent panels of witnesses today to examine these topics, and I'll introduce the panel separately, but I would like to say at the outset that I'm especially pleased to have with us a State Department witness, Deputy Assistant Secretary for European and Eurasian Affairs, Jonathan Cohen, to provide the administration's perspective on these developments, U.S. policy towards Turkey, and the future of the bilateral relationship. I'm also honored to have our second panel, Jacqueline Funari, Andrew Brunson's daughter, from my state of North Carolina, and I understand a proud student of UNC Chapel Hill. Before I introduce the panels, though, I'd like to offer my fellow commissioners an opportunity to make opening statements.